Hoosier Nation, the road gets tougher and the stakes get higher. Your number 2 Indiana Hoosiers are rolling into College Park to face the Maryland Terrapins in a Big Ten East clash that could shake up the conference race. Fernando Mendoza and the Hoosiers' high-powered offense look to light up the scoreboard again, while Indiana's defense, one of the nation's best, aims to shut down Malik Washington and the Terps. The eyes of the Big Ten are watching, the lights are bright, and the Hoosiers are ready. This is Hoosier Tailgate on thehoosier.com, and it starts now.
And picked off up the sideline. Indiana, Asbury, walking them down. Woo! IU, America, they got a football team now.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Coach Griff's Pregame Primer here for the Indiana Hoosiers taking on the Maryland Terrapins out in College Park, Maryland today at 3:30 kickoff on CBS. Big games going in and around the country today. Ohio State just scored again and is up 24-14 after Penn State closed right as the second quarter was ending to make it a 17-14 game, but the Buckeyes take the opening possession and march down the field and get the 6 points. So that in itself is a big game there on the calendar today, as is Vanderbilt in Texas. And last I saw that game, Texas had a commanding lead of, I believe, 2 touchdowns, as they are really coming out of their shell, so to speak. And this Penn State team playing quite well as well today. Like I said on Thursday, they still have really good players and really good defense. And thus far, playing Ohio State pretty tough on the day. But like I said, Ohio State just scored early on in the second half and is now back up to 24-10 ball game. Wanted to take a quick shout to the game here this afternoon for the Indiana Hoosiers. Couple things here looking at this ball game to think about in the sense of what we can expect today. Again, Indiana firmly atop the Big Ten, 8-0, 5-0 overall. Maryland 4-3, 1-3 in the Big Ten. We talked about Thursday. This is a sneaky good ball club, and you might as well throw out the record because you are going to get Maryland's best today there at homecoming in front of a sold-out crowd. So it's a sold-out crowd there at Maryland this afternoon as the Hoosiers entertain Maryland. Kickoff 3:30 today on ESPN there in College Park, Maryland. Last I saw the line, I think it was a 21.5, maybe now down to 20, somewhere in that respect. We'll talk about the FPI probability here in a second. Indiana leads the series 8-5 of all time. Last time Indiana was at Maryland, visiting back in 23, they walked away with a pretty good you-know-what kicking, 44-17 by Maryland. And really, this is avoid the trap game. This is a game that Indiana cannot think anything other than their A game there in College Park. Have focus and execution on the road on both sides of the football and special teams, because like I implied, Maryland is going to come out swinging in today's game, and Indiana cannot afford to have any sort of letdown today on the road. And just to bring up to everyone to speed as well, Indiana is without left guard Drew Evans today, as well as specialist kicker Brendan Franke. So 2 big people out of the game today, and Aiden Fisher, who was listed probable by Coach Signetti on Mondays during his press conference. has been downgraded to questionable. So that in itself, I kind of lend in a little bit that this may be a game that you won't see Fisher as well, if I'm guessing at this point in time. But Evans being out, a huge blow along the offensive line, and they're going to have to shuffle some things around there. We'll see who they decide to put in at the left guard spot. But you're going to have their best of whoever's the next man up in that equation. Indiana really, Coach Bobstead is one of those guys that really just sticks to 5 guys. You very seldom see him entering any type of rotation amongst the guards and tackles. He pretty much leaves the first five in the entire game, unless they pull him out because the second unit's going into the game. So while Drew is not in today, next man up mentality, very little snaps in game-like conditions. So we will see what that all entails for this Indiana offense. Also, look, Indiana coming in this game definitely on a momentum. Very dominant win last week against UCLA, a team that came into Bloomington with winning the last 3 out of their last 4 games. So a team that had beat this UCLA team prior to playing Indiana by driving the basically 80 yards in 38 seconds to get the game-winning field goal. And you got to be weary of this Maryland defense, who has played pretty darn good all year, giving up only 17 some odd points on the year. Very good defense, gets sacks and interceptions, so it's important that Indiana stays on point today. The one thing I like about Indiana thus far is week in, week out, I think they show a next level of maturity and discipline in their game, which I think is vitally important. And the one big thing, on the road, they maybe have not scored as much on the road than have they had at home. They scored 30 at Oregon and 20 at Iowa. While those are wins, they weren't, wins that you would, you're not going to get 40 against those 2 defenses, especially. So again, can they, Indiana maintain the sharpness today and keep their focus on what is in front of them, not worrying about storylines or anything else that can be a distraction. I know I just read something today that Signetti pulled in Mendoza earlier this week after he had found out that he had reached out to Matt Leinart about the Heisman Trophy and handling that aspect of it with the noise on the outside. Signetti knew nothing about it, which probably did not please Coach Signetti very much, as well as the fact that Fernando was worrying about something that is truly out of his hands. He can only do is play the game and keep playing the game. And, whether you're a favorite or not a favorite is irrelevant. The noise is always going to be there. And you've just got to do what you've done already. Tune it out, focus on the each day in front of you, and give it your best. So I found that an interesting side take this week on that respect. And then the other thing is, here, Maryland, opportunity for them for some redemption. We talked about the ball games they lost. Washington, they had them down 20-3 in the fourth quarter, lost the game. We know what they did against UCLA last week or 2 weeks ago, and unfortunately lost that game with 38 seconds left in the ball game. And so this team is very capable of putting together a good string of quarters together. And Washington, their quarterback, is a very good quarterback. And so Indiana today will be tested. up front will be the key as always. How will Indiana's front seven, do against the Maryland run game that is not very good? I think they're averaging around 100 or maybe close to 100 yards a game. Let's take a look at some of those statistics right now, just for the sake of, reminding ourselves. This is kind of defense to or offense to offense. Let me change that around here real quick. And as you can see here, offensively, Indiana, again, explosive offense, 494 yards a game, Maryland 350. Indiana's really been good on third downs. And in the red zone, they've been pretty darn good as well. We talked about Thursday, Indiana 48 points off of turnovers, but Maryland has been also very good on points off of turnovers with 55. And like I said, this Maryland team is a team that has, a plus 11 on the year. Indiana's a plus 8. So a 3-point differential in Maryland's favor. Look at that scoring defense. Again, Indiana's defense is going to have to play really good today, especially with some injuries that are affecting the offensive line. But Maryland's defense just right there at 17.3 points a game. And it's hard to believe a team that has only given up 17 points is 1-3 in the Big Ten and 4-3 overall. That's kind of crazy. And you look at their rush defense, they're only giving up 125 or 124 on average on the ground. Part of that is their style of play and what they like to do up front, and can create some odd looks for an offense. Defensive passing game has been kind of a little bit of their downfall. 225 on the year. Indiana 157. And the game that hurt them was there against Michigan State when they gave up 293 through the air. And so Indiana right now on defensive side, about 100-yard, close to 100-yard differential between Indiana's defense at 248.8 and Maryland's defense 351.7. And we'll see what all happens in that regard. Robert, glad to have you with us as well. Michael, appreciate you guys stopping in this afternoon just before the game here. Get you guys all ready to roll with this ball game this afternoon. Indiana's red zone defense has been spectacular on the year. They've only given up red zone scores only out of the 11, 2 total. And you can see on the touchdown side of it, 2 of 11 Indiana red zone defense, only giving up 18%. That's phenomenal. And when you look at Maryland, 76 and 38, those are numbers that you just don't look and say, wow, they stink, because those are still pretty darn good there. Sacks, Indiana right now leading over Maryland with 29 to their 22. Again, today, big thing for Indiana is up front. Indiana's front 4, front 7, how you want to look at it, versus this Maryland offensive line. And can Indiana do some of the things they've been doing consistently over the last couple of weeks, getting pressure with 4, leading to sacks, forcing teams off schedule, getting to become predictable, and then being able to pick and choose which way they want to utilize their pressures and stuff. So that will be a key component today with this Indiana defense overall. So when you think about that, it's a team in Maryland, like I said earlier, although they're 4-3, 1-3 in the Big Ten, they're sneaky good. You cannot take them for too lightly on this ball game. And Robert is ready to roll. All right, my man. 3:30, you get a little bit more pregame time in there, right? Take care of us some things. See, Jason, glad you can by. Yep, we talked about that one as well with Ohio State. Penn State 17-14 at halftime, and Ohio State taking the ball right down the field and scoring. And as of right now, they're on the 23 going in on a 3rd and 12 here. And Penn State just took a penalty for defensive pass interference. So it's going to put the ball about the 2-yard line. So Julian Sayin, the quarterback for Ohio State, is really good. That cat is really good. And Smith and Tate on the outside for Ohio State, they are beast. But heading back to this ball game focus-wise, Indiana today offensively, I said it against UCLA. I'll say it again. They got to have an established running game today that utilize their strength in Hemby and Black. Hemby going back home to Maryland for this ball game. You know he's going to be juiced for it. You saw the comments from Loxley about why Wyatt and Hemby left the program. Had to do with what he was going to be willing to pay them, and did not have the monetary value in their bank, so to speak, that was going to be able to pay them what they were worth on the quote unquote free market. So they left. Now he seems to think he had the dollars and cents in his pocket to pay those two what they were worth according to their value, they would have still been in College Park. I'm not quite sure about that, but yeah, that's how he kind of feels. But today, Roman, again, let's get that cat rolling. Let's get some targeted plays for him, both running and in the passing game, and Keelan as well. And again, Indiana last week, 260 plus yards on the ground. They need the exact same type of game today with their running game against this Maryland defense. They've got to find ways to establish the run game against Maryland. And in the passing game as well, we got to find ways. They got to get the ball to Surratt and Cooper and EJ, of course. And last week, EJ got more targets because, quite honestly, Surratt and Cooper were not open. They were pretty much shut down by UCLA. Where today, Indiana's got to find ways to get Coop and EJ or Surratt involved in this ball game from the get-go. You know, get those play action passes going, because of having a solid running game. You'll get those guys up and be able to throw it behind them, as well as moving the pocket with Fernando, sprint outs, bootlegs type of mindset. So you're just not always lining up and taking a drop. Remember, this team has got 20 some odd sacks on the year. So they're good at what they do. They bring some different looks and pressures that can be confusing. And you got a new guy in at left guard for Drew Evans playing in his first true game of this season. And so you want to find ways to get that kid's confidence boosted way up, and so that you can keep the ship moving right down the waterways. Yep. Yeah, it is. I mean, they are a sneaky good ball club, and they've lost games that they had the chance to win. And unfortunately, they've come up on the short end of the stick in all three of them. And that doesn't mean they won't find their ways. And remember, they've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. And that is a huge advantage of having 2 weeks to prepare for this Indiana ball club, because it allows you to hone in on what do they like to do offensively, what do they like to do defensively, what are some things they can do offensively that maybe affect on Indiana and what they do or how they play, things of that nature. But Indiana today, finding ways to get the ball in the hands of their star players, Surratt, Cooper, Hemby, Black, EJ Williams. You know, how does Nowakowski fit into this game plan? And but at the same time, run the football. Find ways to pound the rock at this defense. Go right at it. They've got decent speed, and you don't want to get into the thought process of that you're just going to run around the outside on this team. You've got to find ways to hit them up inside, get the ball to the perimeter, and things of that nature. But I'd like to see Indiana reestablish the run game like they did against UCLA, and then find ways to take advantage of this Maryland's aggressive nature. Find ways to get the screen game going, get the tailback screen, get some of the jailbreak screens or quick screens, because they like to be aggressive. And one way to attack aggressive defenses is to screen them. And that's kind of what, if you remember, Michigan State did to Indiana. Because of Indiana's defensive aggressiveness, they put in a lot of screens against Indiana and did quite well. Same thing here. An aggressive defense, find ways to get the screen game, and that's another way to get the ball on the perimeter in the hands of your better players in that regard. And most importantly today for Indiana, on offense and defense, is get this Maryland offense team behind the chains, and for Indiana's offense to make sure they stay on schedule. Because when you get in 3rd and longs with this defense from Maryland, that's when you're going to see the junk stuff coming at you. So staying on schedule is vitally important in a tough environment. And Indiana hasn't played well at Maryland. It's, one of those things is that they've struggled at Maryland. So those are some of the things on O&D. And then, of course, in special teams that kind of become a huge, huge feature in a game like this. Biggest thing is field position, maintaining it and creating it. I'd like to see Boyd get off on a big punt return somehow, some way, and, help it by setting up a score on a special teams today. That would be huge, but really helping the field position. And that's going to be key. Now, we talked about Brendan Franke not available today. He is out. So their kicking specialist will go to the young man that was kicking last week, and not as consistent, I don't think, of getting the ball in the end zone. And they have to be able to take advantage of field position today when they have it and when they get it. Indiana, of course, like I said, offensively, they've been rolling, defensively as well. Very complimentary in what they do. And that's what this team does well. Complementary football, playing off of each other. And as Sig likes to say, fast, physical, and relentless. Play the next play, forget the last play. And that's going to be the mentality today. And granted, Maryland's going to get some plays. And ultimately, Indiana's going to have to find ways to come back and get them back off schedule from whatever, from whatever they do. They got to find ways with this quarterback, being a freshman, confusing him, getting pressure in his face, not allowing him outside the pocket, and hopefully get some picks off of him today because he's making poor decisions. The kid can throw it. He's shown that he can throw it. And that's the thing about this young pup. He's going to be a real good quarterback in the Big Ten. He's a freshman in that regard. I do think today's game is about Indiana's maturity. Can they go on the road with the mindset of 1-0 in a hostile environment, sellout crowd, homecoming at Maryland against a team that is sneaky good, and come away with a victory no matter what it looks like? That's going to be key. They are going to play in some hostile environments, not just this week, but next week as well. And they're going to have to continue to do the things like they did at Iowa and Oregon and today at Maryland. And it's not like they haven't played in these environments. They're just going to have to make sure they're focused in these environments with crowd noise and things of that magnitude. So I do think Indiana today finds a way to get it done. I think if they can put 30 on the board, I think they're in a good spot. I'd like to see this defense hold Maryland to under 20 points on the day. Like Like to see Indiana rush for about 230 yards, throw for about 280, and get a game where they've got, again, over 475, 500 on the ground on the day today. I think that's the type of game that Indiana's capable of, and really executing the third down conversion stuff, being, on schedule and making these change moves, and then at times take calculated risk on fourth down if you want to go for it. But I think if Indiana can do that, and then defensively, if Indiana can hold them under 20 and keep them under 100 yards rushing and under 200 yards passing, I do think they have a pretty good defense that can do that today, because right now, Maryland averaging 100 yards on the ground and 248 through the air. So you keep them under 100 because that's your average. You keep them under 200 yards passing, that's your average. I do think in that regard, they can keep this offense for Maryland off the scoreboard for the better part of the day, and take advantage of third down and fourth downs when this team wants to go for it. Any questions here before we roll and get ready for this kickoff? Do I think Indiana get the number one rank? Ask me that Monday. If Indiana can hold serve today, I don't necessarily think they will, because Ohio State and what they've shown, especially what they're doing against Penn State today, they're pretty darn good, and it'd be hard for them not to be the number one ranked team. But again, when we talk about resume and stuff, we talk about, that type of scenario here. Let's see here. What else do I got here? That's not what I wanted. This is what I wanted. Remember today, Indiana in the FPI rankings, and Indiana 25.1, and Maryland's down here at 3.4. So you can see that is a 21 and about a 21 point differential of that in FPI aspect of things. In that aspect, I think under efficiencies, let's see what that looks. I think that, I don't know if this is the Big Ten. Yeah, this is the Big Ten. Efficiency wise, this is O&D type of scenarios. Indiana, right there in second, 93.9. Maryland is down here at 65.7. So you can see, kind of the differentials there when you think about it. And next thing here, let's look at this. This is the ESPN game breakdown. Let's see here. Indiana, right now on the predictive models and stuff, Indiana right now is projected as a 90.5 chances of winning today. Of course, that is highly skewed based on the betting lines as the game hasn't started, and that predictor will fluctuate as the game goes on. But right now, they see it as a 90.5% chance of Indiana winning today. And you can see Indiana, comparison-wise, on big numbers between the two. You got 609 for Surratt, their leading receiver. Wingate, their linebacker, is a really good player. He leads them in tackles. Stewart, one of the D linemen, is 5.5. Remember, they got two freshmen as D linemen, 23 and number 9, both edge players, and they're 1-2 in sacks of the year. Let's see. Now, Maryland, some of their wins. They beat Townsend, but they had that big win at Wisconsin, 27-10 early in the year when everyone thought Wisconsin was still a pretty good ball club. That was a big win on the road, and then lost a game 24-20 to Washington, had a 20-3 lead in the third quarter. Lost this one as Nebraska kicked the field goal as time ran, I think with a minute left in the game, and lost this game with 38 seconds left in the game. So you can see 3-3. Let's see, that's 10 points, right? 3, 6, and 4. 10 points. They've lost 3 games in a row by a combined 10 points. So there gives you the idea why I think this team's sneaky good, as they could be easily 7-0 coming into today's game. So Indiana will have their hands full today. You bet that they're going to have to play their best ball. Robert, post-game show, yes, there will be. Approximately 7:15, usually 30 minutes at the conclusion of the game and the pressers and stuff. So figuring a 3-hour game, that's 6:30, 7 o'clock being that target number, give or take a few minutes. Let's see here. Yeah, Ohio State up 31-14. Last I say, let's see. Ranking. Okay. Well, that should do it here for the pregame primer for this Indiana Hoosier game versus Maryland this afternoon. We're about an hour out of kickoff, 58 minutes to be exact, before this game kicks at 3:30. Big things to watch for. Can Indiana's offense continue its dominance? Can they stay on schedule? Can they get the big plays when they happen? And are they getting the ball to their targeted guys, Surratt, Coop, and Hemby, and how they are doing against the front 4 of Maryland's defense? And on the opposite side, how is the front 7 of Indiana doing against that front 5 of Maryland's offense? If Indiana can control both sides of the ball, line of scrimmage, and continue to do what they've done up to this point, I do think they get a big win today if they do not turn the ball over and make foolish mistakes in a ball game today, both on offense and defense. So that is going to be what I think Indiana has to do today. We'll find out what Indiana will do when we see them play between the white lines. But until tonight at 7 o'clock or thereabouts for the Indiana Sports Beat postgame show with my partner Jim Coyle, who is out in College Park, Maryland, and myself, we will see you at the postgame show tonight. Enjoy the game today. And you've been watching Coach Griff's pregame primer. All here on thehoosier.com from Coach Griff, myself. Watch and see a great game today between the Hoosiers and Maryland, and we will see you tonight right after the game for the postgame show. Good afternoon, everybody.